When I said earlier, it makes your branding makes your business more effective, it also makes your business more efficient because you're not wasting time with stuff that not only do you not want to be doing, but also that just doesn't really make sense. If I were to, for example, get an invitation from like my local chamber of commerce to give a talk on how to start a brand strategy business, for other like hopeful entrepreneurs in the community.
Right.
Could I do that? I could totally do that. It would probably be fun. I would be bringing value. And I could teach a lot. I've been in business for, over a decade. So I know a few things, right? So like I could do it, and it could be a decision that maybe paid off for me in some way. But does it really, like, for my goals right now and for my long-term mission, does it really make sense to do that? Or does it make sense to either decline that invitation or kind of make a counter offer and say, hey, instead of doing this, I would actually love to give a talk on this for this type of person. Would that interest you?
Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, and I'll be your host today. And I have a fantastic guest with me. I'm super excited to introduce you to Asia Dorr, and I'm going to tell you a little about her. Today's show is really going to be interesting because it's so necessary today, the way the world is working. There's a level of branding yourself and needing to be seen and speaking out and allowing people to know who you are and hear your voice and understand what you're about, your expertise, your mission. That is true for everybody today, which is kind of unique and interesting. So whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a job seeker, everybody is better off if they understand who they are and what they're about. And I have an expert today who's going to really help you understand this and see what you can do. So Asia Dorr is a brand strategist on a mission to simplify and revolutionize the concept of branding, so every entrepreneur can take full advantage of it and grow their business. Using her signature strategy Audacity method, she's helped hundreds of business owners build effective and profitable brands that empower them to leverage their unique expertise. So Asia, welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm really excited to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation with you.
I am too. And I think it's so interesting because when we first talked, I thought, okay, branding, is that like an appropriate topic for the show? And then I immediately realized, of course it is. It's such a wealth builder in itself, and it's so foundational to understanding ourselves, which this show is very much about your relationship with money, and understanding yourself is really the key to understanding and improving that relationship. So I want to dive into all kinds of things related to this. But why don't you tell us how you found your way to this career?
Sure. So I started my business back in 2014, which is over a decade ago, which is wild. I started as a photographer, and that was kind of an accident. I sort of just fell into it, and I really enjoyed doing it. And then people started asking, how much do you charge to take photos? And I was like, oh, didn't think of that before. So I ended up starting a business. And I made my way through all types of photography, just really experimenting with different subjects and different industries. I was in the wedding industry for a while. And then I made my way to branding photography, not just headshots, but more in-depth sort of planned photo shoots to help people, bring their brand to life in a visual way. And what I realized is that even though my clients were totally brilliant at what they did, they couldn't actually tell me what their brand was when I asked. So it made it a little difficult as a photographer, because if I don't understand your brand, how am I supposed to photograph for it? Yeah. Right? So the strategy piece became a really crucial part of my work as a brand photographer. And in 2020, I started to realize that the strategy part was actually the most exciting for me. And so I sort of phased out the photography and started focusing strictly on the strategy. And that's what got me to where I am now, where I just do the brand strategy.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I always love to hear people's journeys, because it speaks so much to how to build a career, which was how I started my business, was career transition coaching. And I just think it's so interesting that if you start with an interest, like you had an interest in photography, and then allow yourself to see where it takes you, and allow yourself to, over time, instead of being sort of locked in to, I'm a photographer, to be open and see what aspects of it are most interesting or where it can lead you. And I feel like a lot of times people like to identify with something and just hold on to that, and they sort of refuse to see some of the signs along the way. Did you have any trouble?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just to add to that, it's not just the picking something and not letting yourself evolve, but it's also, I think we often devalue our experiences, especially as experts, but that's kind of a different topic, or maybe a tangent, but we tend to devalue our experiences when our experiences are what make us experts. Like if I had just started out, I want to be a brand strategist. I really don't think I would be as good at what I do if I had done that, if I didn't have those 5 or 6 years of photography and offering a different kind of service and having a different kind of business. Because I didn't just learn about photography in that time. I also learned about branding, but from a parallel sort of auxiliary industry. I wasn't learning about branding to learn about branding. I was learning about branding through the lens of my own experiences and also of my clients' real life experiences, instead of just someone teaching me, Asia, this is what branding is and this is how you should be a brand strategist. I got to learn that for myself. Yeah. So to your point about just, letting the journey take you where it's going to take you and following the curiosity and the passions, there's so much value for that. Not just for me and not just for you, but for anyone who wants to be really, really good at what they do. Yeah,
I agree. Thank you for that. That was a great answer. I had kind of the same experience where I started out. I've changed careers a few times, but I started this business, my Limit-Free Life company, doing career and business coaching. And as I'm doing it, just like you said, I'm learning from my clients that one of the main stumbling blocks are money problems. And, whether you can change your career or build your business comes down to your relationship with money and how you manage money. And so it kind of flipped. I still do those things, but I focus more on the money piece of it first, because that's so foundational. And I don't know, I just find it interesting, because I was resistant to going there, especially having been a finance person. I thought I was getting away from that, actually. And so I had some resistance to going back into it. So anyway, I just find the whole career journey so interesting. And I love people like you who move through and just keep getting closer and closer to, what you really love doing. And I think when you...
And I don't think...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go.
I don't think either of us are done yet.
No, I was going to say that
there's
too.
So much value. Yeah, there's so much value in the pivot and just being like, okay, well, this is just where I'm going. It's hard to it's hard to pivot or evolve because it feels a little bit like you're abandoning what you've already built, or like, oh, but I had all these student loans that I finally paid off. I can't just switch. But it's like, you're not abandoning that part of you. You're not abandoning everything you've learned. Like, all of that gets to come with you. There's so much value in the pivot. So yeah, I doubt either of us are even done with that journey.
Thank you for that. I don't think we are either. But that kind of leans into the idea of your relationship with money. So when you brought up, something really significant, when you just pay off your student loans and then you're like, I can't change now because I've invested. And so how was your, did you have some fear around moving into the branding aspect of what you wanted to do? How was your relationship with money?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely. I mean, I said that I started, pivoting in 2020, but I don't think I fully did until 2021. It took me an entire year to really just allow myself to let go of the photography piece, because it's like, well, this is how I built my entire business. I can't just stop. That's crazy, right? But as I sort of let myself explore it more and got through. Don't want to say got through. Kind of moved through the imposter syndrome part of it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't go to school to learn how to be a brand strategist. I'm completely self-taught, right? Mm-hmm. No one taught me how to do it. It was, I got scrappy through years of experience and research and making my own deductions and my own, connections, really, to see, oh, this is how all of this can work. This is how we are doing it. Why are we doing it like this when we could do it like this? And that's so much better. Yeah. And once I started allowing myself to go down those paths, I just built more self-trust and more self-confidence. And the more conversations I had and the more clients I worked with, it's like, oh, maybe I do actually know what I'm talking about. Like, maybe I do know how to do this. I mean, from the money angle, that's a difficult part of pivoting too, because what I built was reliable and it was technically working. So it's like, why would you want to change that? So in terms of the money part, in my personal experience, that is a really difficult part of the pivot. But I also think that there's smart ways to pivot. I didn't immediately say, okay, no more photography. I built this other thing sort of on the side and allowed myself to still continue offering a service that I know made me money. And I think that helped me in terms of the confidence going into it and the confidence on the money side of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, people have to find their comfort zone with that. There's a lot of people who say, oh, you got to burn the life rafts and, just move forward. And then there are other people who do things simultaneously, or they keep their day job and build on the side. And I really believe that that's a very individual choice. And somewhat of a financial choice, depending on your situation. It might be way smarter to maybe continue to do something else while you're building your business. So I think it's really interesting to hear how people go about it. So okay, let's talk about branding, because I do feel that branding yourself is a big step toward making more money and more financial freedom. So I'm sure you know this because this is what you do. So can you tell us why branding is important from your expert perspective?
Yes. I mean, how much time we have? Let me count the ways. For the purposes of this conversation, it is true that building a strong brand can help your business be more profitable. Or if you don't have a business, if you have a career, it's true that it can help you maybe get a better position or negotiate a higher pay or whatever it is if you have a career. That is all true. And I think that's sort of the mainstream message that we hear when it comes to branding or personal branding. More specifically, it sounds like we're sort of talking about here, personal branding. So yes, it's true. Building a brand can make you more money. But the perspective that I'm a lot more interested in as a brand strategist is that building a brand that positions you as an expert in the one thing you want to do allows you to actually do that thing, right? So when I work with clients, it's less about how can we build a brand that makes you more money, It's more about how do we build a brand that allows you to offer your really, really specific service and skill set in a really, really specific way for a really specific type of client. And the way that you do that is by building a brand, because if you want to attract those people, if you want them to understand what you do and how you can help them, that's where your brand comes in. You have to be able to communicate all of that with them. So it's really less about let's make you more money. It's more about let's make you money or more money in the exact way that you want to make it. And as an expert, it's really important that you do that if you're an expert, because it's what's going to allow you to actually use your expertise within your business. When you are an expert, you have so many skill sets, you know so much, you have so much education and experiences and knowledge, and you can help people in a lot of different ways. But what I find happening is that if you don't know how to communicate exactly what you want to do, you end up taking on all this work that you don't actually want to be doing. Like, yes, you can do it. Yes, you're really, really damn good at it, but you don't actually want to be doing it. So that level of fulfillment isn't there for you. And sometimes that level of service isn't there for your client. You know, no one wants to work with someone who's dreading working with you, right? You don't want to go to a hairstylist and they're like, oh, I hate cutting hair, but here I am, I'm good at it. So it allows for both. It allows you to do what you really want to do, and it allows your clients to get a better service because you really love what you're doing.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that making money piece is sort of a natural outgrowth of that. It's not so much like I need to brand myself so I can make money, but it's I need to brand myself so I can do the work that I love to do with the people that I love to do it with. And that's the tricky part. I mean, that being seen as an expert in something that you're actually an expert in is the piece I think that's missing for a lot of people. And
I think so too. And it's like easier said than done, right? Like branding is not easy. It's really simple, but it's not easy.
I know.
And especially so for experts. It seems so contradictory, but the experts are the ones that have the hardest time building their brands because they have all of this knowledge and experience, because they have this education, because they've created all of these frameworks and methods and offers. It's like, yes, they can help people in so many ways, right? Yeah. Like when I ask these clients, well, what's the one thing that you do? They're like, well, one thing. Like, why would I want to limit myself to one thing? I'm multi-passionate. I have all of these skills. So they have the hardest time trying to narrow it down. And what I always say to those people is that it's not about boxing you into one thing. Instead, what we try to do in brand strategy is to take all of the things you're good at, all of your experiences, and funnel them down so that they mean one thing to your ideal client, which is totally different thing, right? We're not making you pick one thing. We just need to make it all mean one thing. What are you doing for these people? And again, it's not an easy thing to do. It is simple, and it is so necessary to do that, as much as it feels painful at first, because if you can't communicate what you actually do and why it matters to people, they're not going to care, right? It's not personal against you. It's just people are busy, right? We're getting phone notifications and we have to pick up a cake and like we're getting bills, like whatever it is. We need to make it really clear immediately how we can help people so that they know immediately whether we are relevant to them or not.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've actually, it's funny, I've just started doing more in-person networking. I sort of used to do a ton of it, then COVID hit, then I sort of stopped. And just recently, I've thought, and I've run into a few people who've invited me to things. And so anyway, it's been really nice to get in a room with people again. But what has been fascinating, because I've struggled with this too. I mean, so many things that I do, I want you to know all of them, just in case, you need this one, not that one. And it is very confusing. And so I've become aware of when I'm confusing. But I also was really interested listening to people explain what they do. I mean, sometimes they tell you what they do and you honestly don't know if you could use that service or not. You don't even have a concept really.
Right. And it's obvious that they're brilliant. Like it's obvious that they know what they're talking about. It's just that you don't know what they're actually saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've experienced that too.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it myself.
Yeah, same. And I kind of know when I finish talking to somebody and I'm like, I just confused the heck out of them, but whatever. Can't go back now. But there's something that I was just thinking, that I lost it, but it's a fascinating thing. I know what sometimes we get very, very technical too, and we get lost in the technical aspects of what we do, and that message is usually kind of dead on arrival if we get too technical. So how, I don't know, do you have a few tips you could share with us for how to create the messaging so it is clear? Is it about speaking just to one person or talking about one thing? I mean, what makes it work?
I think the most important thing and the most helpful thing you can do in that situation is really know who your ideal client is. Like the guy that you meet at the bar, like the old guy who's like 4 beers deep, and he's like, so what do you do for a living? Like he doesn't really care, and he doesn't really need to know, right? So if we want to like get technical to him, it doesn't really matter. As long as we can communicate to our ideal clients what we do and how we can help them, that's really all that matters. So part of that, the first part of that is really understanding the psychology of your ideal client. And I know there's someone watching or listening who's like, please do not make me do another ideal client avatar worksheet. Like I don't want to do it.
I've done like 20 of them. I dread it so much, but I know how important it is.
And like some of them are really helpful and some of them aren't. Like knowing where your ideal client shops or their, annual household income, like those things can be helpful. But demographics are really only helpful because they inform psychographics, right? We really have to get into their head, their psychology, what they're struggling with and who they are, but even more importantly than that, who they want to be. So if we can tap into that, then we can know, okay, well, if this is where my ideal client is at, how can I explain what I do in a way that they will actually understand? So you're really just putting yourself in their shoes. And that takes some trial and error. It's not just you're going to do one client worksheet and be done, right? And it's something that it evolves as well. So that's the first thing, is get really clear on your ideal client. And then secondly, go test it out. You said you went to in-person events. Like that's a really good way to do it. Facebook networking groups just online, asking for feedback from people. Hey, does this make sense when I say it like this? And just allowing it to be its own process and trusting that process, which I hate trusting the process. I like to write my final draft like first try. But it really is helpful to get that feedback and see like, okay, when I explain it this way, are people's eyes glazing over or is something peaked? Like, do they have an interest peaked? So I think those are my 2 biggest tips in terms of trying to avoid the technical jargon and put it into terms that your ideal client will understand, because like I said, it's going to depend on your audience too. The guy 4 beers deep at the bar doesn't really matter. But if you're meeting someone at a networking event who literally said they have the problem you can solve, you're going to want to hone more in on that. So being willing to kind of test and change and experiment with how you're explaining what you do in different circumstances to different people.
Yeah. Yeah. And if people don't understand what you do and you're just not going to, you're not going to sell services or products or whatever it is you're trying to, or yourself in a job interview. I mean, it just isn't, it's not going to land. And so that is obviously problematic from a financial standpoint as well. So, I find this really interesting. I also think when you talk about what you do, that part's important, but I worked with a branding strategist years and years ago, and she would talk about your brand being the experience you want your client to have, which I always I could connect with that a little better. What would your comments be around that?
Yeah, she was definitely onto something there. Your brand is really just your reputation, and your reputation is really just how people feel about you. And you can totally rephrase that into it's someone's experience with you. So it's Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, in different terms maybe, but it's the same concept.
Yeah, and I kind of liked it because then I could visualize myself working with clients, and sort of think, okay, well, what experiences were really good, and try to somehow communicate that experience to people. But it is all about communication. So, and that is hard stuff for everybody. And what about, isn't it? I mean, I just got a new communication book I'm super excited about. I think, oh God, I hope I don't screw up his name. Jefferson, and I feel like I'm getting the last name wrong, Parker, I think. Anyway, it's a great new book. He's a trial attorney who learned a lot about communication from his work as a trial attorney. And I've heard him on so many interviews, and it's just like, wow, that is the perfect answer, like, to whatever the subject is. So, but communication is just the key, literally, to everything. So how do you help people learn to just communicate better if they're not so great at it?
Oh, that is such a great question. But first of all, what you said about communication and as it relates to branding, 100% absolutely. It is the most underrated branding tool. Actually, people very much underappreciate the value of branding when it comes to anything, really, but especially in branding, especially because branding it leads to relationships, and communication is critical in relationships. So communication is also a skill. And I think that's something that we don't really think about. We kind of just assume like, oh, I'm not good at that. Or, we take it as like a personality trait. If people never understand what I mean, people don't listen to me, whatever it is. Communication is a skill. There are a lot of brilliant people who teach courses and give seminars on how to be a better communicator. So for someone who is not, or thinks they're not, or has a hard time with that, I mean, there are certain things that I've learned about communication that I can help them with, but I think the most value I can bring as a brand strategist in that situation is to just offer an outside perspective. I have worked with entrepreneurs in so many industries, and a lot of times people will try to get me to get really specific about what kind of industry entrepreneur I like to work with. And I refuse to do it because what I do can apply to so many different industries. I'm sure, Michelle, you have the same experience. So what I can offer is an outside perspective. Yeah. I'm typically not in the industries of the clients that I'm working with. I'm not in their same industry. So I can come into it fresh, but also come into it without knowing technical jargon, without knowing history, without knowing the trends, right? I can come into it with a fresh perspective and look at it a little bit more objectively. And I think that just that alone can help people get out of their industry bubbles. I'm in an industry bubble too. Like I'm very much in the branding industry bubble, right? So if I work with someone to work on my brand, I want someone who can do the same thing, who can say, okay, well, you're over here and I'm over here. Let me show you what I'm seeing. Because just because someone's a bad communicator doesn't mean they're dumb, right?
Right.
My clients are all very smart. So it's less about let me teach you how to be a better communicator, because that's not necessarily my forte, and more about here's what I'm seeing so that you know what you need to go do to be better at communicating. I feel like I lost my point a little bit there, but did that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Okay. And I think it's a great point. And just a correction, not Jefferson Barker, Jefferson Fisher. He wrote a book called The Next Conversation, and it's really excellent. But okay. I think I totally think you're on it, and I think it's great to, like you said, to have an outside perspective. I personally love the fact that you're not typically in the industry of the person I prefer that. I prefer having people who are not in the coaching world, because the jargon's all the same. Everybody, is sort of offering things in the same way. And I think it's very helpful to go outside of your industry and look for, ideas and perspectives and feedback from people who aren't in your industry.
I agree. That's also a great content tip. Like my favorite thing to do when I'm like, oh, what do I want to talk about today? Is go like listen to a podcast about something completely different, like science or something.
Yeah.
Because like as an expert, you'll pick out little things and see how they're relevant to what you do. And it allows your content even to be a little bit more fresh instead of just regurgitating what everyone else is saying. So just a little content idea tip.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think, we can kind of understand the point of having brand strategy. I do know sometimes it's very hard to you put a lot of things in motion. You're kind of waiting to see, what works and what doesn't. And while there should be a strategy before you do all that, I find that most people I know just dive in and start, this is popular right now, or everybody's on, this platform or that platform doing this, so I'm going to do it. I know the value of having a strategy. It's very similar to money. I mean, you can do all kinds of things, but if you don't have a strategy, you're really just throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and you don't even know what your goal is. I mean, the strategy is set to bring you to a certain goal. And so, but I do know it's hard. I do know it's hard to stop trying things and step back and spend the time on a strategy. So what I don't know, what's the motivation there that you can provide to help people see the value?
I mean, there is, to be clear, like there is a lot of value of trying things out. We already talked about that earlier. So like I don't work with entrepreneurs unless they've been in business for, typically like over a year. I would prefer like 3 years at least, because so much of your brand is built through trial and error. A lot of times we think we know what we want. We think we know where we're going, and then we try stuff out and we're like, oh, whoa, nope, not that. I don't know where I'm going, but it's not that way. And a lot of times they don't have what they need to actually build a brand yet. So I'll start by saying that. And the other thing is, like, my signature method, the strategy audacity method, really came from the observation that people build their brands in one of two ways. The first way is that they are very strategic. They read all the books, they go through all the blog posts, they work with all the people. They have it very much in black and white. This is exactly what my brand is. These are all of the guidelines. We adhere to these 100% of the time. Which isn't, I don't want to say that's a bad thing, because having a brand strategy is good, right? It does make your business more effective. But if you're building it too soon, or if you're building it too rigidly, it's not going to give you the flexibility to evolve, not just as a business owner, but also just as a human, because you are not a brand, right? You are a human or a business owner or a career person with a brand. So there's that distinction. So if you go strategy alone, it's like, okay, that's great, but it's probably going to hold you back in the long run. And it's not very exciting. Yeah. Like, I mean, corporate branding is a great example of this. Like, there are some very successful corporations, and a lot of that has to do with them pouring probably billions of dollars into manipulating perceptions until their brand is perceived exactly the way they want it to be perceived. But there's not a lot of corporate brands are just so unexciting. There's nothing to be inspired about, right? We don't have any sort of connection with it. It just looks pretty and professional. There's no substance there. There's no soul. So that's the one way people build their brands. The other way is the audacious way, where they're like, I don't want to be held back by anything. Don't put me in a box. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm multi-passionate. My mood changes with the weather. I'm just going to do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it. And that can be exciting to watch. There can be a lot of connection there because it's obviously a human. Yeah. But if there's no strategy, then we're back to, okay, well, people don't understand what it is you do now and who you do it for and why it matters. So like I said, the strategy audacity method, I've really built out of that observation. It's one or the other. And I've realized that it has to be equal parts both. You do need the strategy and you do need the audacity. You do need the guidelines and you do need the flexibility. Yeah. So in terms of, okay, well, I'm going. I don't want to stop and focus on my brand. Now's not the time. I'm too busy. You're always too busy.
Right.
And it's not, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, it's really fast and easy. You just do it. It does take an investment of time and energy and sometimes money. But the results of that is a brand that is both effective and profitable, but also unique and flexible and allows you to evolve with you. And if we go back to that conversation we first had, it's what gives you the freedom to use your very specific skill set, working with a very specific type of client in a very specific type of way. So, I mean, it's like anything that's an investment of time and energy, right? You could go to the gym. No one wants to go to the gym, really.
Right.
But it's what you're going to get after that really makes a difference. So if you're in a place where your business is kind of just you're doing whatever and you get random clients asking for different things and you're happy with that, I'm not going to convince you otherwise. Like if it's working for you, if it's bringing in money and you're happy, great, keep going. But if you're at a point where you're like, I'm dreading this project, or I really don't want to work with this type of client anymore, this is the thing that I really want to do right now. Like me with photography, photography, it's okay, but I really want to focus on the strategy. I want to work with a client who trusts me to help them build out their strategy. Then you have to build a brand that allows people to understand that that is what you actually do for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I really loved what you said about, kind of waiting until people have tried a few things and not coming in to help with strategy until you have a little more clarity. And so you're a few years in or whatever. I think that's really great. And I think it's really honest. So the time, if people are telling you, oh, you need a brand strategy before you start your business or the day you start it, maybe that's not actually the case. And I think it's interesting what you were saying. So.
Yeah. I mean, there is so much power in the trial and error process and experimentation. And, if someone comes to me brand new and asks, can you help me build my brand? Of course I can, right?
Right.
But what I would probably do is send them resources to kind of research the basics of branding and how to start and what sort of things to start thinking about. And then once they've taken that on their own and kind of have their own journey with it, then come back to me and let's talk about what you learned and what you liked and what you didn't like.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I do think people have kind of a mistaken idea that branding is about, and this is an aspect of it, but the colors and the fonts and, your logo and all of that. And while that's important, that's not going to work for you, on its own, selling your services for you. And so, some are pretty clever, that's for sure, but branding goes way beyond that.
Yeah, visual branding is really important, especially now where the internet is just full of nonstop content all the time. Visual.
Yeah.
Even video now, right? And sounds even. So those things are really important. But if you don't have the brand strategy, your logo, what is your logo representing?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a pretty picture.
Yeah.
So you have to have the strategy piece before you move into the other visual stuff.
So tell me, if you would, some actionable steps people can take. I know we've covered a few, but are there some that we haven't covered that people can take to sort of stand out? Because that's really the key here. I mean, whatever it is that you do, you probably got thousands of other people or potentially more than that doing what you do. So how the point of branding is to help you stand out as well. So what can people do that's sort of simple and actionable initially?
So I mentioned branding was not easy, but it is simple. There's really only 5 steps. The first step is you need to figure out exactly what it is you're doing. Literally just what you do, right? And if it's all the things, then okay, how do we narrow that down so that it means one thing? So figure out what you do. The second thing is to figure out who you do it for. That's your ideal client. That's when I was talking about the psychology and really just getting into their head of what they're struggling with and what they want and who do they want their identity to be is probably the biggest one. Mm-hmm. Who are they going to be after their problem is solved by you? The third thing, and I think the most direct answer to your question of how do you stand out, is you have to figure out how you do what you do differently than every single other person who's offering the same thing as you. What you do does not make you special. There are thousands of brand strategists, maybe even millions, I don't know, right? There are thousands of money coaches. So it's not about the thing that we're actually doing and what we're doing. It's about how we're doing it differently. And a lot of times people will be like, oh, okay, well, what makes me unique? Okay, well, I have really great customer service. And it's like, okay, that's great. But so do the thousands of other people who offer the same thing as you. So when I say how, what I'm really referring to is your signature method, the framework that you take people through to get them from point A to point B. The fourth thing that's also really underrated that you need to figure out is why any of it matters. Like, who cares, really? Who gives a damn that I'm a brand strategist? Why should people care? And the reason it's important to know that is because, number one, it helps people connect with you because you'll probably share similar values. And it also, from the perspective of not only are we expert business owners who want to make a lot of money, but we also are genuinely trying to make an impact and genuinely trying to help people. In the case of me and my clients, we're literally trying to change our industries or revolutionize something or disrupt something, right? We see that something is wrong and we want to make it right. We see something broken and we want to make it better. And if that's the case for you, you need to have an actual mission for your business, like a specific, achievable mission. And your why is, okay, here's how what I do helps us get closer to this end goal. So that's step number 4. The last step is to go talk about those things over and over and over and over and over again until you're absolutely sick of your message, and then go share it some more.
Yeah, I love that. Those are great, great tips. And it is hard too, because you're right. You need to say it over and over. And at some point, I feel like you can have said it so many times that you lose your own enthusiastic energy around what you're saying because you've said it so many times. And sometimes you have to remind yourself to power it up with some energy. So.
Oh, yeah, it's so common because it's like we're doing it all day, every day, right? We're talking about it, but we're also thinking about it all the time. This is probably like a weekly or monthly thing where I wake up and I'm like, Asia, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing here? I don't know. Does anyone care? But the thing that I do when that happens, and I'm not even joking, is I go back and I look at my brand strategy guideline, because it says right there in black and white, hey, Asia, this is what you're really good at, and this is what you're trying to achieve, and this is why it matters. Okay, remember? All right, great. Now go get to work.
Yeah, I love that. I know. I have my vision and my why, and I have to go back and look at it too, because then you remember, oh, this is why I'm doing this. This is who it's going to help, and this is why it's great. So, but yeah, we do have to, do that little process. So there was, I know what I wanted to say. I keep losing my train of thought because I love talking to you. So, but the other great thing that I think about, and actually sort of a cost savings that can come as a result of this, is when you are really clear on your brand and what you're doing in your brand strategy. I feel like it's a filter for decision making. So you don't do things or invest in things or start things that are not aligned with this, brand that you've developed and the strategy that you have, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs in particular do. I don't say it's a waste of money, but they try things that maybe don't work, and in part they were never meant to work because they're not even aligned. So. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm really, really glad you brought that up. When I said earlier, your branding makes your business more effective, it also makes your business more efficient, because you're not wasting time with stuff that not only do you not want to be doing, but also that just doesn't really make sense. If I were to, for example, get an invitation from my local chamber of commerce to give a talk on how to start a brand strategy business, for other hopeful entrepreneurs in the community.
Right.
Could I do that? I could totally do that. it would probably be fun. I would be bringing value. And I could teach a lot. I've been in business for, over a decade. So I know a few things,
Yeah.
right? So like I could do it, and it could be a decision that maybe paid off for me in some way. Mm-hmm. But does it really, like, for my goals right now and for my long-term mission, does it really make sense to do that? Or does it make sense to either decline that invitation or kind of make a counter offer and say, hey, instead of doing this, I would actually love to give a talk on this for this type of person. Would that interest you? So when it comes to, like you said, decisions or invitations or opportunities, or even just following curiosity, it helps so much to know where you're going. Otherwise, you're just going to keep taking steps that technically are productive and might feel productive, but aren't actually leading you to where you really want to and feel called to and need to go. So yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, I love this. And I've experienced this where, especially for entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneurs are typically kind of optimistic, hopeful people anyway, and full of ideas. And so almost every opportunity that comes your way, you can almost spin justify a decision to do it. But if you do have a very clear brand strategy, an idea of, who you are and where you're going, it will make it easier to say no to things.
I mean, this podcast, me being here on your podcast today, is a perfect example of that. Because I got the invitation and I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't help people with money. I'm not like a money coach. I don't really do anything with money technically. However, here's how I can talk about money in a way that will be of value to your audience. And even though we're in different industries, it works because I was able to frame what I do through the lens of your podcast.
Right.
So even things like that, not only accepting opportunities, but making the opportunities work better for you in terms of you actually achieving your mission. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. And definitely an investment with, for an entrepreneur in what you do is an investment that has a return. That is not like, an expense, if you want to categorize things those ways. Asia, I hate to end this. You're really interesting to talk to, and I love everything you're saying. I think it's very, very helpful. And entrepreneurs also are struggling to be more profitable much of the time, and so this is also a track to that. So, can you tell people how they can find you, how they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. To keep it simple, I would just love to invite your audience to a masterclass that I have that teaches you the 5 core elements you need to brand yourself as an expert. If you're listening to this thinking like, okay, well, I am really good at what I do. Like, first of all, high five. Love that you know that about yourself. But if that's kind of where it stops and you're like, but what do I do with that? And how do I start moving my business in the direction where I actually want to go? Then this masterclass is going to really help you in terms of knowing like exactly what you need in order to make that happen and make that possible. And the link to that is just asiador.com/masterclass.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great way for people to start. And then there'll be information, I'm assuming, there or on your website if people want to reach out to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like the masterclass is a great first step just to get a feel for exactly what I do and who I am. And from there, I think it'll probably be a little bit more clear, like, is Asia someone that I should be thinking about working with or not?
Okay. Well, Asia, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. And, I think people can tell from the podcast how comfortable you are with what you do. And that, to me, always speaks to expertise and a lot of knowledge. And also how relatable you are, because...
yeah, I'm super sweaty right now. That's how I know this was an amazing conversation, because I get really excited talking about branding. So that's how we know. If Asia's sweaty at the end of a podcast interview, it was a good one.
Okay. Well, and that was audacious. I love it. Yeah, there's your proof that you know how to be audacious. So, okay. Well, Asia, thank you so much. I will look forward to watching the masterclass. I'll put it in the show notes so people can also watch it and know about you. And Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much. I think this is a huge key to success for a lot of people. And, I love that you're making that happen for people. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun, and it was a great conversation. You're an amazing host, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And audience, thank you. We love having you listen to the Money and You Show. So please share this episode if you know any friends, entrepreneurs, job seekers who really would do better if they would learn a little more about how to brand themselves and go through that process. You can share the masterclass. And if you have any comments, you can reach out to me, Michelle, or team at limitfreelife.com. We would love to know what you would like to hear more of on the show and any comments you have. And with that, we'll see you next week.